The story begins with a frightened man asking what his companion just said. He questioned whether it was a joke. After all, they started that team together and have finally reached rank S. So if the guy couldn't understand why this was happening, staring at him sternly, his companion said that apparently he didn't understand, so he would say it once more. With that, the crazy guy shouted, calling him Ikoma Ichinos. Leaving him in shock, they said they wanted him out of the glorious sword team. 15 years before that event, some portals began appearing all over the world. The portals functioned as gates to supernatural realms, which started expelling the monsters that existed there. Meanwhile, part of the population began awakening abilities with levels, just like in a game, allowing them to fight. This group of people with awakened abilities was sent to combat the portals. They were called hunters. Someone was reading something written in a completely different script. At the same time, the accessed his awakened system. Hunters can select any character class of their preference, but some classes, like mages, are slow at casting attacks and difficult to control, leading to a high mortality rate. The boy was undecided about what to choose, so he decided to pick the bandit class, which had great agility, since his priority was gaining experience and becoming stronger. Ikoma saw something that left him surprised. His plan had worked. He quickly gained a lot of experience points, becoming a high-level hunter known as Swift Blade. The portals gradually caused more destruction in the world. A magnificent wing appeared. It was a monster that greatly resembled a griffin. He started fighting on the front lines for the safety of his country and the world, and he genuinely believed it would always be that way. His leader said that they wanted his comrade out of the group. Shocked by this, Ikoma asked why. But the guy had already lost patience and questioned whether he truly didn't know. He stated that the protagonist knew the real reason. The monsters were getting stronger, but none of his attacks were working. And on top of that, he was terrible as support. The protagonist clenched his fists trying to contain his anger. The guy said that bandits were good because of their speed, but that was a thing of the past, claiming that no one chose the bandit class anymore since mages could deal a higher amount of damage even at low levels. Furthermore, the guild decided to remove him from the rank as hunter list so that Ikoma wouldn't die in high-level portals. The protagonist tried to argue, stating that he understood his flaws. Even so, he had risked his life to contribute to the team. The guy said that besides that, no one could confuse and poison monsters like he did. They stared at each other for a moment, but the leader stated that at least he didn't seem discouraged, asking the protagonist to continue. Ikoma asked what he meant by that. His companion only gave a brief smile. Walking past him, the man said that in any case, he was out of the team. With that, he left while the protagonist remained paralyzed. Ikoma stood still, not understanding what had happened. A little later, in a place where several empty bottles were scattered. A lot of trash and cigarettes were part of that mess. He was completely in tears, sitting on the ground while holding a lighter in one hand. Looking to the side, he noticed something, and he assumed that being a hunter meant everything to him. Even without receiving recognition, he always thought that all his efforts would be valued. He let the ashes fall from his cigarette, stating that this was his reward for all that sacrifice. He also remembered that he was never good enough. That's why he bought supplies with his own money and invested in equipment. Because of that, he didn't have a single cent left. He lost his rank as classification and now couldn't even enter high-level portals. The protagonist saw a notification on his phone saying that the Glorious Sword team had been successful in their expedition in China. They had managed to clear the Palace of Toddy, a portal that everyone said was impossible to conquer. Everyone was celebrating, extremely happy about it. On the other hand, the protagonist was paralyzed, staring at that news. He observed the chat discussing the event. Some people asked where Ikoma was, while others said that he had been expelled because he was a dead weight. Seeing those comments, the guy became extremely irritated and threw his phone against the wall. He questioned why he had chosen to become a bandit. He acknowledged that if he sold all his equipment, he would have enough to survive. However, it wasn't that simple. Remembering the times when he was with his team, he began screaming while crying, declaring that he had sacrificed everything for them. Falling to the ground, he realized that he had nothing left. Suddenly, his phone emitted an alert, stating that the protagonist was very surprised. It stated that an S-rank monster had appeared in the Morima district of Tokyo, urging everyone to evacuate to a safe location. This made the guy extremely nervous. After all, the Glorious Sword team was out of the country, and there were no hunters in that area capable of subduing a monster of such level. He was no different. He couldn't do anything alone either, but his eyes drifted toward his equipment. Still a bit apprehensive, he realized he might be able to try something. A large monster, appearing as if it were wearing armor, soared through the sky. The protagonist was fighting against it while stating that, luckily, he hadn't sold his equipment. That monster was Kronos, the space-time dragon, being far more menacing than he had imagined. Ikoma assured himself that, at the very least, this would be a glorious end to his career as a hunter. Even though he was apprehensive, the guy declared that they should begin their final battle. With that, the dragon let out a tremendous roar, causing numerous stone fragments to rise. Dashing forward, the protagonist reminded himself that he was a hunter, and that he needed to buy time so people could evacuate and wait for other S-rank S-rank hunters to arrive. Thus, he leaped to attack the monster. Kronos also charged at his enemy, preparing to strike. Shocked, the protagonist noticed how incredibly fast his opponent was. His dagger was split in half. He immediately tried to dodge the attack. With great difficulty, he managed to evade. However, behind him, a massive explosion occurred. He looked on in horror at all that power. The dragon let out another roar while glaring at the powerless man. Ikoma realized that if he got any closer, he would die. So he used his double-bladed scythe, Hydra. However, it didn't deal a single point of damage to his opponent. Becoming increasingly nervous, the protagonist realized that the monster was immune to poison. Unexpectedly, Kronos launched another attack with its claws. Thanks to his speed, Ikoma managed to dodge, though with some difficulty. He admitted to himself that he couldn't win this way. After all, he would have already died if not for being a bandit-class fighter. Even so, he was cornered, with nowhere to run. This was his only chance. He grabbed a rope with a blade at its tip and began spinning it. Then he launched it at his enemy. It was a klepto claw used to steal items from the target. He hoped the monster had something useful, something that might give him a chance to fight back. His eyes gleamed as those enormous claws came straight for him. The strike was so fast and powerful that it completely destroyed his equipment. Even injured, the protagonist laughed, saying that apparently this was it. Lying amidst the rubble, covered in blood, he wondered if this was truly his end. His vision blurred with pain. He could barely see anything. And after a life spent saving so many others, this was how it would all end for him. He wished he had a chance to start over. He noticed something in his hand and questioned what it was, realizing that the klepto claw had stolen something. It had obtained an epic item, the divine pocket watch, which granted a one-time opportunity to go back 10 years into the past. He was stunned, wondering if he could really return to 10 years ago. Still writhing in pain, the protagonist questioned whether it would actually work. Noticing that the dragon was coming at him again, Ikoma remained hopeless as he saw the attack approaching, declaring that this was not the time to be thinking about that. Using the last of his strength, he gripped the watch tightly and shouted, saying he wanted to go back to the past. The monster's massive claw was extremely close to his body. One of its talons finally pierced through his chest, and he felt his consciousness fading away. Suddenly, he heard loud noises and wondered what was happening. Opening his eyes, the protagonist realized he was lying on the ground beside his bed. In his hand was an alarm clock, showing that the year was 2030, on a Friday at 8 o'clock a.m. Feeling a bit anxious, Ikoma complained, wondering if he was dreaming. Then he opened the curtains of his window. The former S-rank hunter was stunned by what he saw. Looking at his phone, he realized that it was displaying a calendar from 10 years ago, and he remembered the divine watch. Thus, he quickly opened his status window. Shocked, he saw that his class had not yet been defined, meaning he had truly returned to the past. The protagonist gave a faint smile, realizing he now had the chance to do things differently. With that in mind, he declared that he would become the strongest hunter of all time. A man mentioned that people were saying there had been deaths there, warning that they should restrict service entry into the portals. The protagonist watched this video while brushing his teeth. Another older man stated that every year the number and strength of monsters increase, and sending powerless people in would only result in more casualties. Ikoma confirmed that the watch had truly sent him 10 years back in time. He remarked that at some point people had stopped debating this issue. After all, it became clear that everyone had to learn how to protect themselves. Knowing what would happen in the future would be extremely useful. Aside from him, no one knew which monsters gave the most experience points or where to obtain rare items. However, he preferred to choose a class first, and to do that, he needed to reach level 10. There weren't many portals for low-level hunters, especially those without a class. So the guild regulated all portals that were still restricted. He was inside a goblin den, an F-rank portal, stating that he would be able to reach level 6 after killing the last monster. A man was fighting some of the goblins nearby. The older man chuckled, saying he had arrived just in time and asking if the protagonist was okay. But mentally, Ikoma questioned who that guy was. The man told him that the kid wouldn't have been able to clear that portal alone, explaining that goblins were weak but could be dangerous when they teamed up. With a smile, he introduced himself as Kenji, a level 16 hunter who wielded an excellent sword and made sure that rookies didn't die. He said people called him the tutorial guy, while mentally, Ikoma assumed this guy clearly had nothing better to do. Kenji explained that hunters didn't have an official retirement age, so he figured this was a great way to make money. But the boy was extremely discouraged, wondering how he had ended up in this situation. Suddenly, he shouted in celebration, announcing that he had finally reached level 10. The system notified him that his level had increased and that he had received 2 skill points. The crazy guy started slapping the protagonist on the back, congratulating him for finally reaching level 10, while Ikoma thanked him. Kenji added that if Ikoma kept going like this, he might even become famous. Meanwhile, the boy thought to himself that he could reach S rank. The man said that soon, Ikoma would be able to select his class and that he could count on his help if needed. The protagonist remained thoughtful for a while. Each class came with a unique set of abilities, which could be acquired by spending skill points. The old man suggested the swordsman class, since that way the kid could attack enemies just like him. But considering Considering Ikoma's agility, the bandit class would also be a good fit. However, he grew curious when he noticed that the boy still hadn't chosen a class. Kenji asked if he didn't know how to use skill points. He questioned whether no one had told the kid to start with the mandatory skills, light steps and fortitude. These two skills were responsible for increasing a person's physical attributes. They were considered essential for beginners, as most hunters initially had no means of defense. But since his goal was to become the strongest hunter of all time, he couldn't afford to waste his skill points on such things. So he had only needed one skill. As he made his choice, Kenji tried to stop him, begging the boy not to choose that. The man began to rant, saying that damage resistance skills were useless. Not to mention, Ikoma would never find any use for fall damage resistance. Then the system notified him that he had acquired fall damage resistance. The old man asked if Ikoma was afraid of heights and warned him to be more careful when selecting his next skills. Even more shocked, Kenji watched as the protagonist used 10 more skill points to upgrade his resistance to level 2. Losing his mind, Kenji saw Ikoma evolve it to level 3, using 15 more points. Devastated, he muttered that he couldn't believe the kid had wasted all his skill points on fall damage resistance. He declared that now the boy had only two options, either become a swordsman or remain a civilian. But the protagonist assured him there was another option. This shocked Kenji to his core. Ikoma chose the Gravity Master class. It was a hidden class that only appeared when a player spent all the skill points earned from levels 1 to 10 on fall damage resistance. For a long time, no one knew about it due to its activation requirement, but even after its discovery, many people still didn't choose it. Additionally, manipulating gravity was extremely difficult. But Ikoma had also been an S-rank hunter before, so he knew that this was the best class in existence. The old man shouted, ordering him to stop. After all, this would turn the boy into a mage. He insisted that Ikoma could still cancel and choose to become a swordsman instead. But Ikoma assured him that this was what he wanted. With that, the system notified him that he had acquired a new class along with gravitational abilities such as manipulation and magic. Seeing that he had succeeded, the protagonist began to celebrate. He shouted, declaring that he was finally a mage. This time, he would become a powerful S-rank and never have to suffer that humiliation again. Kenji remained somewhat nervous as he watched the rookie. He called out to the boy, stating that he didn't seem to understand that the mage class wasn't as cool as he thought. The old man explained that mages were more vulnerable and their mortality rate was much higher than other classes. He even suggested that perhaps the kid should reconsider being a hunter altogether. Seeing this, Ikoma mentally noted that he had already expected this reaction since people tended to believe that other classes were better. Suddenly, Kenji's expression turned to shock as he began screaming, demanding to know what was happening. A red-hooded goblin, level 17, had appeared out of nowhere. Frightened, Kenji admitted that he couldn't believe a high-level monster had just spawned there. The goblin began chasing after one of the female hunters, while Kenji rushed to help her escape. But mentally, he acknowledged that he wasn't skilled enough to fight stronger monsters, which was why he never left that place. The rest of the hunters, there were only level 10 or lower. No one else could stop that monster. Extremely nervous, Kenji suddenly remembered the protagonist. Gripping his sword tightly, he ran forward, declaring that he would handle that goblin. Even Ikoma is surprised to see a red hood there. Mentally, he tells himself that Kenji should be able to handle that monster at his current level. However, the old man was only defending himself while the goblin kept attacking relentlessly. The protagonist notices that apparently he has no experience fighting monsters stronger than himself. The old man starts shouting, asking if there's any level 15 or higher hunter to help. They ask if Kenji isn't level 16, but he says he can't face something higher than his current level. The protagonist assumes that he shouldn't offer to help. After all, the monster is too strong for him to handle. He also notices that he can't even see its movements and he would die instantly if hit, making his situation even worse. Besides not fully understanding his abilities, the Gravity Master has low stats. But then he remembers how the man helped him and worried about his well-being. This makes him realize that it would be horrible to let someone like Kenji die. So he grabs his sword, stating that he has always liked a challenge. He says he will see if he can overcome his class's weakness. Shocked, the old man warns that his level is too low, not to mention that mages are weak against melee attacks, and a monster of that level would easily kill him in the blink of an eye. Ignoring all of that, the protagonist calls out to the Red Hood. The monster, still in a frenzy, looks at him while the boy says he will use it to test his abilities as a Gravity Master. He says he believes this is the best class, which is why he is risking his second chance, but he can't run away from something so weak. As he moves forward, he says that otherwise, choosing such a class makes no sense. The old man tells the brat to run. At the same time, the monster draws its sword and charges at the novice. The worst part of being a mage is their terrible physical attributes, always needing to rely on hunters from other classes. But he is different since, as a Gravity Master, he can temporarily enhance his attributes through manipulation. Thus, he uses manipulation to reduce gravity by half. With that, he quickly dodges his opponent's attack. Even Kenji is surprised and asks how he became so fast. Mentally, Ikoma explains that this ability increases the caster's movement speed by reducing gravity by half. However, he can only make linear movements, but that's fine as long as he can predict the enemy's movements. The monster attacks him again, but he manages to dodge once more. He states that he has fought against thousands of monsters at once, using nothing but his speed as a rogue. The Red Hood feels the consequences after receiving a slash. The old man keeps asking how a low-level mage can deliver such quick strikes. With an understanding of mana management and the class itself, many gravity masters have managed to equalize their physical attributes. The protagonist says that low-level monsters recognize simple patterns, making them easy to fight. He just needs to increase his speed. The old man asks Akoma how that is possible. Surprised, the brat shouts to the old man, asking him to finish off the goblin. With that, Kenji runs with his sword in hand. The boy keeps staring at the monster while it looks at the old man, who is rushing forward to strike it. With a smile, Akoma asks the creature how it dares to turn its back on him. Thus, the protagonist uses gravity magic, causing it to be stuck in place. The goblin is completely paralyzed while hearing something. Above it, the old man is preparing to land the final blow. With that, he delivers the strike, causing the protagonist to level up twice. Seeing the goblin's corpse, Akoma realizes that it actually worked. With some relief, he says that this fight proved that he can become the most powerful hunter of all time. The people around notice that the hunter is new, yet he had great ease in defeating the Red Hood. Mentally, Kenji realizes that Akoma managed to surpass the monster's speed despite being a low-level hunter. Observing the boy, he is stunned to see that the brat hasn't even realized what he just did. Still a bit shaken, he says that the novice has an above-average talent, wondering who Akoma really is. Suddenly, the protagonist feels a sharp pain. He leans against a rock really heavily, noticing that he used up all his mana, also realizing that he will have to work a bit more on developing his ability to use skills. On the other hand, the old man seemed genuinely happy to see that he was alive. The man approaches him and thanks him for the help, asking if he would like to be carried on his back. Akoma says that it's quite embarrassing, but he will have to accept it. There were many people inside the portal, but only the protagonist, who had become a hunter just a few days ago, stepped up to help. Mentally, the old man continues to thank him, stating that he helped him find the courage he needed. He had let fear control him, which is why he only hunted monsters below his level. But now it's time to stop being the tutorial guy. Thus, he decides to walk as a victor. Meanwhile, Kenji says it was an honor to witness the birth of that hero. Thanking the protagonist once again, that portal proved what he could do as a gravity master. Now his goal is to level up. However, fighting alone would be inefficient, not to mention the risks involved, making it necessary to have someone he can rely on. An attendant says she has never heard of a class related to gravity. She asks if the boy can really be a hunter with such low stats. But Akoma changes the subject and asks if there is anyone looking for members to form a team. The woman says yes and informs him that there is a team that accepts anyone, regardless of class or level. The boy asks if she could introduce him to this person. A bit nervous, she says that since his class is mage and his attributes are also very low, he might be rejected. He replies that many rare classes are difficult to manage, so he expected people to have trouble accepting him. The protagonist asks her for their contacts so he can try to solve this problem. A guy appears saying that the boy is causing too much trouble for the attendant, telling him to just give up and leave. Akoma asks who he is. The crazy guy says that apparently the boy is quite funny, claiming that he must know him. He introduces himself as Kakeru from the Thunder Knights team, stating that all hunters know them. The protagonist says they probably only have melee attack classes. The crazy guy confirms, saying that mages are useless. He claims they are a bunch of cowards who can't even get close to a monster. Because of that, these people don't deserve to be hunters. So Kakeru says that the boy should have done his research before choosing a class. Besides that, the brat's attributes are terrible, and he feels offended seeing him tarnish the reputation of rare classes. Akoma asks if that means he also has a rare class. Kakeru confirms and asks if the protagonist wants to see what he can do. Pointing his sword at the boy, he tells him to witness his power. Raising it, he uses lightning summoning. After that, he says this is the best character class since it has incredible attributes and skills. The people around are surprised, saying they didn't know such classes existed. The crazy guy feels proud while watching their reactions. The attendant says that using abilities there is prohibited, but Kakeru assures her that he needed to do it so that Brat would understand. With a mocking look, he says it's none of his business, but insists that the protagonist is very arrogant for wanting to join a team. While the guy keeps bragging, the protagonist becomes interested in the fact that he is a Thunder Knight. This class can deal a good amount of damage, but its movements are simple and unsuitable for complex battles, so he will soon be in big trouble when facing monsters that are fast or immune to electric attacks. Meanwhile, several people say that mage classes are useless, and that all this commotion is just because the boy wants to join a team. On the other hand, others admire and envy Kakeru for his Thunder Knight class. Akoma states that portals were a relatively new phenomenon at that time, so this isn't too surprising. He remarks that he almost forgot how mages were treated in the past. People always thought attribute points and extraordinary abilities were everything, so maybe he will have to fight alone. The attendant calls out to Kakeru, saying he didn't need to say things like that. The protagonist thanks her, saying he shouldn't have asked and stating that he will be alone for now. The crazy guy says that maybe he should reconsider this whole idea of being a hunter, assuring him that he doesn't want to find his corpse out there. As he leaves, Ikoma thanks him for the advice. Kakeru keeps watching him as he walks away. In the Hunter Guild's archive room, Ikoma reads a book and says it will take a long time to earn people's trust, meaning he won't be able to join teams temporarily. So he needs to find someone he can rely on in the long run, or someone with a class that has good synergy with his. But before doing that, you will have to level up and achieve something remarkable. He had some ease in defeating the Red Hood and discovered what a gravity user is capable of, wondering if he should challenge himself in a portal with monsters higher than his level. He looks for an ideal one, noticing that the level 25 statue temple seems like a great choice. Controlled portals are managed by the Hunter Guild and remain open so hunters can gain experience. The strongest monster in that portal is the Stone Knight, making it the perfect place for low-level hunters to earn money. And once he manages to hunt the monster there, some teams might consider accepting him. People can enter these portals even if their level is lower, and he can gain experience by hunting monsters near the entrance. Closing the book, Ikoma states that he can do this. So he decides he will level up in the statue temple and start looking for team members. Inside a dungeon, a person was running down a flight of stairs. Injured, he declares that this is ridiculous since it makes no sense at all. Suddenly, he trips over something. The boy falls to the ground, screaming as he looks in fear at something. With that, a huge impact occurs. A stone monster stood still, covered in blood. The attendant was astonished, noticing that he was only level 12 and yet wanted to go to the statue temple alone. But the protagonist says that there is nothing in the regulations preventing him from doing so. Still nervous, she says she understands that. However, she states that he would be trying to kill himself. After all, the recommended level for that portal is 25. The woman adds that besides that, many unexpected things can happen inside a dungeon while Ikoma walks away. The protagonist claims that he will just take a quick look, saying he won't stay there for long. In front of the portal, he tells himself that he needs to take some risks to get stronger. After all, he has constantly fought against monsters with higher levels. Otherwise, he would never gain enough experience to evolve. However, this shouldn't be taking so long since he could gain several levels at once by killing a monster there. He walks past some statues. One of them had a crystal on his forehead. It quickly takes advantage of the boy's opening and tries to attack him from behind. But he manages to dodge, saying he saw it coming. Ikoma opens his status window, noting that it appears to be a level 20 monster. Looking directly at the stone creature, the protagonist declares that he should be able to handle it. Thus, he continues to dodge his enemy's attacks. With some surprise, he realizes that he has been cornered. The stone monster keeps advancing toward him. With that, he uses his gravity reduction, allowing him to escape from that spot and even land a hit on his opponent. However, the creature had not suffered even a scratch. But the protagonist assures himself that this beast cannot kill him. Moreover, he can see all its weak points. At that moment, he starts landing a series of attacks against the statue. Seeing that he dealt a reasonable amount of damage, he assumes it will be difficult. But he declares that he already expected such high defense stats. The monster once again moves toward him. Even though it might take him a while to defeat it, he still wants to test something. So he uses gravity reduction again, and quickly manages to dodge his enemy's attack. Next, he increases the gravity while pointing his sword at the statue. With a single strike, Ikoma manages to pierce the monster's chest. From within the crack, a red glow begins to emanate. With that, it is split in half. He explains that he made himself lighter to increase speed. Then he self-accelerated with gravity toward the impact point to increase damage. This combination made his attack much more powerful. Just as he expected, he gained several levels at once, claiming that it's best to use them immediately. While opening his status window, he says he already has something in mind. Still thoughtful, he says he can only upgrade one skill with the points he has, so he decides to go for gravity manipulation. Thus, he confirms it in the system, causing his manipulation to evolve to level 2, allowing him to control the gravity acting on his body. He is satisfied with this result, realizing that he can now control the direction force of gravity, noting that he might find a good use for this. But in any case, the real reason he came here is for the demon stones. This is the core of the monsters, which will serve as proof that he killed a stone knight. Even though they got what he came for, he still has a lot of mana left. So he looks back, searching for more enemies. Seeing that there were several others, he decides to hunt a few more to test his new ability. Suddenly, someone summons a lightning bolt and destroys one of the statues. The Thunder Knights group was hunting in that same portal. One of Kakeru's companions says that he is impressive after all. He defeated one of the monsters with a single strike. The girl says that the Stone Knight seemed to have resistance to electricity, but his skill was superior. The guy says it was way too easy and asks if all controlled portals are like that. Laughing, he says that now it's taking longer to level up, suggesting that they should go to a portal with stronger monsters. He steps on one of the stones that was still burning. For some reason, the man does this while saying nothing. His companion asks if he doesn't think he was too harsh on the boy from the guild, but Kakeru assures her that that someone needs to teach these people where they belong. The guy says he actually did the kid a favor since he could have died. Even though it was a bit tough, it was to make him aware. After all, someone needed to say it. His colleague says he didn't seem to have that intention. Suddenly, they hear a very loud noise coming from another room. Drawing his sword, Kakeru asks if it's the same monster. His friend says that space is taller than the previous one. But the guy says it doesn't matter after all. Some monsters are a bit bigger than others and nothing more. However, a giant stone warrior appears. Both of his companions are startled, asking what that thing is. Excited, the lunatic says that things are finally getting interesting since that is a level 30 statue. It is taller than the other monsters that came before. His friend frightened states that they cannot fight against a level 30 monstrosity. Indifferently, Kakeru says he has been thinking about something lately, claiming that monsters at his level aren't fun because they are too easy. Since the Thunder Knights are much stronger than other hunters, he wants to try going against that stone knight. The monster raises its weapon to strike. With the impact, the ground begins to crack. His companion asks if he's sure about this, but Kakeru says there are 3 of them. Grabbing his sword, he says that this is one of the big ones and has a high level. But stone knights are nothing more than moving statues. That's why they are slow and dull. At that moment, the monster launches an attack against him. He dodges with visible difficulty. Now a bit apprehensive, the lunatic admits that it might be a little faster due to its level. Jumping toward his enemy, he says that in any case, he can still expose the statue's weakness after attacking it. With that, he strikes the monster with his lightning sword. Getting nervous, he says that apparently things have gotten a bit more complicated since its defense is also higher. The stone knight quickly prepares its massive sword again. Without hesitation, it delivers a powerful blow. Activating his Thunder Knight power, Kakeru convinces himself that he can block the attack and escape its range. Suddenly, the statue moves extremely fast. Because of this, the man is struck and his chest is slashed. Lying on the ground, he questions how something like that could be so powerful. Extremely frightened, he says that only a few items exist at levels higher than his, but apparently, this is on another level. His companion calls out to him. Terrified, the man warns everyone not to underestimate the enemy's strength. But before he can finish his sentence, the statue is already heading toward the girl. With great difficulty, she manages to block the strike with her sword. Her other companion calls out to Karen as she is thrown back. However, he is also struck in the stomach. The force of the impact is so great that he even spits blood. Seeing both his companions lying on the ground, Kakeru becomes even more terrified. Panicked, he complains about what is happening. Looking at that massive monster, he wonders if it has always been this intimidating. Summoning his power, he says that in any case, he is special. With that, he unleashes a massive lightning attack against the knight. He claims to have put all his power into that lightning. Losing almost all hope, he watches as the statue simply breaks the sword in its hand. Helpless, he can only watch as his sword is split in half. Desperate, he quickly jumps back. Extremely frightened and nervous, the man starts crying uncontrollably. However, the monster keeps advancing toward him. He is in disbelief as he sees the statue getting closer. The creature raises its sword while Kakeru insists that this cannot be happening, declaring that he does not want to die like this. In front of him on the ground, his sword lies broken. The stone knight stands still, looking at him as if he were an insect. Trembling with fear, the man begins to beg for his life. Bowing to the monster, he pleads not to be killed. He screams, begging for someone to save him. Suddenly, a leg wrapped in purple magic appears. The monster raises its massive stone blade. On the other hand, the protagonist uses gravitational reduction. Because of this, the statue is momentarily paralyzed. Noticing this, it looks around, searching for the source of the attack. The monster sees a purple light coming from its rib. Landing a bit further away, it's a coma. He assumes that he knew that wouldn't work. Surprised, Kakeru asks if he is the rookie from the guild who chose the mage class, but the boy remains silent. Irritated, the man demands to know what he is doing, stating that there is no way he can defeat that monster. The protagonist has already reached level 16 and acknowledges that the hunter is right. He assures himself that this will not be easy, since it is a level 30 stone knight. That creature probably reached such a level by consuming weaker hunters and monsters until it became an irregular specimen. Even so, he has to admit that the monster is enormous, declaring that he only wanted to take a light stroll around there, looking for a monster to kill before leaving. However, he never imagined he would encounter something so big. Still on the ground, the man tells him to stop admiring the knight and just run, claiming that it defeated them before they could even attack it, with both of his companions lying on the ground. Ignoring him, the protagonist activates gravitational reduction. The monster, like him, also prepares to unleash a powerful attack. However, he manages to dodge thanks to his speed. Quickly, the statue shifts its movement and tries to strike him another way. As soon as he lands on the ground again, Ikoma immediately jumps. Because of this, he manages to position himself above the monster while evading the attack, and he lands his sword on the knight's head. Still on the ground, Kakeru mentally admits that he cannot believe this. After all, how could a low-level rookie mage do that, fighting almost on equal footing with such a monster? In his mind, the protagonist realizes that the monster is not that fast despite being high-level, so he can easily surpass it. But his biggest problem is that he has no skill powerful enough to defeat it. The Stone Knight is a monster with high defense, so his attack would hardly work against it, not to mention the huge level difference. Additionally, he will soon run out of mana if he continues using manipulation, which means he doesn't have much time. Suddenly, the statue prepares to strike again. While dodging, Akoma admits that this is a bit reckless, but in any case, he has to try. The monster swung its sword as Akoma dodged. Kakeru stated that he knew it was unlikely, but he had hoped that the guy would be able to do it. However, his attack also didn't work. His gravity reduction ability consumed a lot of mana, but he couldn't fight powerful monsters without using it. He realized he couldn't drag this on much longer, so he decided to resolve the battle once and for all. Another big slash aimed at him. The boy dodged again. He used his ability to jump a second time. The protagonist spun in the air to gain more force. Suddenly, he used the gravity of his body to pin the enemy's sword to the ground. The monster tried to punch him. Akoma jumped again, evading another blow. He landed on top of his opponent's head. Surprised, Kakeru asked how he was able to move like that and if it was because of his class. The protagonist jumped onto the monster's head once more. He mentally confessed that he wished he could save his manipulation level 2 ability, but he didn't have many options, so he activated reverse gravity. With that, the boy was upside down, supporting his feet on the ceiling. Noticing that he could apparently use this ability on himself while his enemies searched for him, he was surprised, thinking it was quite interesting. The protagonist prepared, stating that he should be able to deal the necessary damage from that height. Determined to deal with it, he used the gravity increase. Preparing his sword, Akoma said that this would increase his weight. Combining this with the acceleration of the fall, he would deal more damage. He shouted, claiming that it was too late and that the monster couldn't stop him. Piercing through it, the protagonist used the meteor fall to end the battle. The giant monster was split in half and began to disintegrate. As the fragments of his body fell, he was notified that he had gained 524 experience points. He leveled up from level 16 to 23 with an additional 14 skill points. Satisfied, he saw that his plan had worked. After all, he killed a monster that was almost twice his level, which is why he gained so many levels at once. After his victory, Akoma celebrated. He knelt down after increasing his fall damage resistance to level 3. Mentally, he admitted that the impact of the fall was quite severe, but he was happy to have gained resistance ahead of time. On the other hand, Kakeru was stunned, admitting that it was amazing. After all, his lightning attack didn't work on that monster due to its resistance, but still a mage had managed to defeat it. A bit embarrassed, he asked why the protagonist had helped him, considering that he had treated him so badly at the guild. However, the guy quickly became scared, assuming that maybe Akoma was there for revenge. Making him even more nervous, the boy called out to him. He asked if Kakeru could get up on his own and if he was okay. The boy was surprised by this unexpected reaction. He started laughing, realizing that it wasn't what he had imagined. Extending his hand in return, the guy thanked him for saving him. After some time at the Hunters Guild, the receptionist was extremely startled, asking what he was talking about, asking if a level 30 Stone Knight had appeared. Even more shocked, she asked if the protagonist had really defeated it. He simply confirmed without giving too many details. She stated that it was impossible since he had just started and was alone. Picking up the demon stone from the monster, he asked if that was enough proof. The receptionist said that a core that size could only be from a level 30 monster or higher, and even though it was hard to believe, she would register it. She asked if the boy wanted to exchange the stone for money, noting that it should be worth around 200,000 yen. But the protagonist said that at least for now he didn't. After all, he needed it to prove his abilities. Suddenly, someone called out to him. It was Kakeru, who said he had been looking for him since he wanted to thank him once again. He said that he also had a big offer for him. Opening his arms, the guy asked if he wouldn't like to join the Thunder Knights. All the hunters around were surprised by the fact that the Rising team was inviting someone. Seeing the core in his hand, people started talking about how Akoma must be incredible. With a smile, the guy said that it was his lucky day, assuring that it was rare for him to be receiving such a favor. The protagonist was a little embarrassed, while the boy asked him not to be shy. But Akoma said that, unfortunately, he would have to decline the offer. Kakeru was surprised by this, asking why he had declined. Incredulously, he asked if the boy wasn't looking for a team. The protagonist said that he was, but informed that he had changed his mind. With that, he turned his back and started to walk away, leaving the guy in shock. Mentally, Akoma assumed that if he could continue leveling up like he was, it was certain that he would achieve what he wanted. Soon, a portal called the Theater of Maniacal Dreams would appear, and inside it, there was a unique and incredible item. Therefore, thanks to the memories of his past life, he would be the first to clear the gate. Someone placed some stones on the table, saying they would like to exchange them for money. People around grew nervous. The receptionist asked how he managed to kill so many monsters every time, stating that she thought he worked alone. The protagonist ignored her and said there was one more thing. He requested promotion to rank D. A rank F hunter is promoted to rank E once they choose a class, and only rank D hunters or higher go to Portal Disasters. The receptionist informed him that he could only request a promotion promotion once he reached level 25. Showing his status window, Ikoma said that in that case, it was no problem as he was already at level 26. The woman was extremely surprised by this. After all, he was a mage who worked alone and had already reached such a level. She asked how someone could gain so many levels in such a short period, declaring that it seemed suspicious. The receptionist then asked if gravity masters were really that strong. After some time, Ikoma said he had finally been promoted. Now he had more than just an amazing class. Along with his 10 years of knowledge and experiences as a rank S hunter, leveling up too quickly could attract attention he didn't want, but still he needed to hurry to get there on time. Many portals become available once a hunter is promoted to rank D, also making it easier to join teams. The most important part was that this would allow him to enter the portal where that great unique weapon would appear. The hunter who got such a weapon in his past life became a serial killer, probably because he obtained such powerful strength all at once. But this time he wouldn't let that fall into his hands, and for that, he needed someone to help him clear the portal. He began observing around him, stating that there was no need for a large team as that could be problematic at a certain level. At least having one more person would help as he preferred to be cautious at the moment, but for that, he needed to find someone who could complement him with gravity stability. He wondered what abilities would be suitable for the portal he was about to face, and the most appropriate would be to find someone who worked alone but also wasn't against teamwork. The protagonist thought for a moment, complaining that maybe he was being too demanding. To find someone in time, he would need to search all the guilds in the region. After some time, he admitted that he had spent half of his day visiting the guilds. This was already his 4th guild. As he entered through the door, he said maybe he should give up on some things. Suddenly, he saw someone calling their companion useless. A girl, almost crying, apologized, but her colleague said that an apology wouldn't change anything. Ikoma wondered what they were arguing about. The girl pointed at Satsuki, stating that she was fired. The girl tried to beg, assuring she would try harder. But irritated, the leader said that their abilities were terrible with long cooldowns, claiming those techniques were useless. She said that, in fact, she should be paying them for putting up with the dead weight for so long. The girl didn't know how to respond. Meanwhile, the protagonist was observing everything. He recalled when he was expelled from that group, but told himself there was nothing he could do for her. After all, he couldn't have a partner simply out of sympathy. His life depended on this. His ex-leader started mocking Satsuki, saying it was a shame she had chosen such a useless class, claiming it was something miserable and useless to just like her. Moreover, she said she knew what would happen the moment she heard the girl was a witch. For some reason that made the protagonist extremely interested, even as the others told her to give up on being a hunter. Sorcery and gravity complement each other. She could deal a lot of damage against the boss in the portal theater. That's why he was a bit uncertain if he should recruit her or not. However, the girl asked what he was looking at. The protagonist introduced himself, saying he was a rank D hunter looking for a team to join. She quickly became interested when she saw he had a rank D hunter license. The girl tried to seduce him, informing him that she had just opened a spot in her group and asked if he would like to fill it. Excitedly, he called out to Satsuki, asking if she wanted to be part of his group. The girl didn't quite understand what was going on, while her ex-colleague stood there, utterly confused. Mentally, Ikoma noted that he couldn't miss this opportunity as she was a witch, or rather, the person he had been looking for. But the other woman asked him not to waste time with that girl and urged him to join her group instead. A bit embarrassed, Satsuki thanked the offer, but said that he was a rank D hunter and she wasn't even level 20 yet. Taking her by the hand, Ikoma assured her it wouldn't take long for the girl to level up, stating that he needed her help. She said her class was useless and that she didn't want to drag him down. Despite that, Ikoma said again that he could help her. The girl said she didn't have confidence in herself and that maybe it would be better for her to give up for real, but he said he wouldn't ask for much, begging her for a chance, assuring her that he could help her gain the confidence she needed. Bowing, Satsuki said that if he really wanted, she would love to join his group. However, her ex-colleague said she didn't believe that he had chosen such a useless person for his group, claiming that he would regret it. The boy thanked her for the advice but said he had something else to add. As he passed by her, the protagonist stated that he knew more about classes than anyone else. Right behind him was his new partner. Boyish could cover the weak points of a gravity master, and the best part was that this class could do amazing things in the theater, and that was as good as his own weapons. Some time had passed, and they were now in another location. The protagonist thanked her for coming along with him. The girl said that witches weren't that useful, but the protagonist replied that he was also from a mage class, stating that she might think she's useless now, but that would change in a few years. Now she asked if he truly believed that, to which Ikoma confirmed. It would be better, right? For now, they needed to talk about a portal. Determined, the girl assured that she was certain, but making her nervous, he explained that it wasn't a controlled portal. Ikoma said they had entered a portal that hadn't appeared yet, with a recommended level of 30 or higher. Startled, the girl exclaimed that the recommended level was too high, and on top of that, it was an uncharted portal. Uncharted portals are those that haven't existed lived long enough for someone to analyze them. Extremely nervous, she said that she was still at level 17 and that her class was terrible. But the protagonist asked her not to worry, assuring that nothing would happen to her since he would fight alone. In his past life, he had read all the available records about portals. That's how he was able to devise his strategy to eliminate that fear. He declared that the two of them could easily clear the portal, saying that the girl just needed to trust him. He felt bad for dragging someone into this, but he needed to protect that weapon no matter what. Satsuki asked how the protagonist knew about a portal that hadn't even appeared yet. Ikoma said he couldn't reveal all the details, but to summarize, it was all thanks to a rare item. She said she didn't believe it. After all, there was no way an item could predict a portal so far in advance. Suddenly, everyone's phone started notifying an alert. Nervously, she grabbed her device to see what it was about. The protagonist did the same. Everyone was talking about the portal alert, especially since it was near the Sikyo district. Satsuki asked if this was the portal he had been talking about, but the protagonist already said they would begin the next day. He explained that probably no one would be able to clear the portal in a week, but after killing the boss, one would get a reward. After some time, they were already searching for the portal, while the girl asked if Akoma was sure. They realized that the portal eradication ministry had already set up at the location. Suddenly, a woman ran up to them asking if they were hunters. She asked both of them to report any information they found about the portal, such as its layout or the abilities of the monsters. However, their safety should be their priority since there had been many deaths in uncharted portals. They told her that the ministry could count on their help. Satsuki asked why he hadn't told her they were going to kill the boss, but Ikoma explained that she would have stopped them. Once inside the portal, he warned her that this one was different from the others and asked if the girl was still anxious. The girl said yes, starting to stammer. The protagonist apologized for asking such a difficult favor, but he reassured her that he would fight all the monsters alone, and if he couldn't handle it, they would leave immediately. Afraid of being abandoned again, Satsuki began to say that she would do her best. She said the protagonist could even use her as bait, but Ikoma said that wouldn't be necessary, telling her to just cast her spells. The girl said she barely knew any useful skills. He asked if she could use something called mana drain. This skill drains mana from a target, making it useful in long battles against stronger monsters. Since it also allows transferring that mana to a group member, it makes it the perfect ability to assist gravity users. This way, the protagonist wouldn't have to worry about his mana while dealing with monsters that could be drained. The girl said the skill took too long to cast and wasn't very efficient in terms of mana, suggesting it was better to use one that harmed enemies directly. Mentally, Ikoma thought that might be true if one of them specialized in that, while he said he would fight at his maximum. And that should give her all the time she needed. Fighting against him was a large clown bear. While dodging the attacks, she shouted for his companion to use the ability. She summoned his shadow ball, casting a large spell at the bear. With that, the bear screamed as it was hit by the ability. The protagonist realized that the monster had let its guard down. Therefore, he prepared to leap toward the enemy. Quickly, he was already above his adversary. He increased his body's gravity and attacked the bear's head. After defeating it, Ikoma sheathed his sword, preparing for more. He said that it had been extremely easy, while gaining 212 experience points. Surprised, the girl said that she had gained 3 levels in one go, but she immediately said she felt bad for letting him do all the work. The protagonist assured her that he needed her help since they were going deeper. Furthermore, they were a team, so she needed to evolve. The girl asked if they were really a team. She said it felt very different. After all, it never seemed real when she was with Awa. Smiling, Satsuki then said that she would try to be more useful in the next battle. On the other hand, Ikoma asked her not to overdo it. A bit nervous, he reassured himself that they would be fine, and that they would defeat the boss and secure the rare items. A man named Kaoru had obtained that item in his past life. He used it to become the worst criminal in Portal history. You can be sure that guy never gained power later in the Portal, so they probably wouldn't find it. After all, 2 days had already passed since the theater opened. Meanwhile, a man was fighting. He tried to hit someone with his hammer, but the person dodged. The guy started laughing. Using a skill called Life Deleter, he managed to deal a fatal blow. His loincloth was covered in his adversary's blood. As the man's body collapsed, Kaoru said the guy should have known better than to pick a fight with him. He noticed that he had leveled up again. The crazy guy said that those losers had given a surprising amount of experience points. He said that humans don't fight each other, so they're much easier to defeat and kill, already being at level 36. Back with the protagonist group, he was using the gravity increase. Ikoma summoned a dark ball in front of him. With that, he threw the clown from the box to the ground. Embarrassed, the girl said that even after casting spells behind him for a while, she had gained many levels, now being at level 22. She said she felt like she achieved so much without doing much, claiming that he probably would have done all of that alone. But the protagonist replied that it was only this easy because they hadn't encountered a powerful monster yet, as these monsters have simple patterns. Reaffirming to her that the witch class is powerful, the girl repeated that it didn't seem like it. Changing the subject, Satsuki Setsuki asked if they were going to leave now as he had already used a lot of his mana. After all, her mana was almost depleted. He said he was using gravity manipulation to increase his attributes, and that was the cause of the exhaustion. The girl mentioned that the guild advised them to leave once their mana drops below 50%. With a smile, he said it was time to test something. In front of them was a clown goblin. The protagonist asked if she was ready, informing her that they would begin. Immobilizing the monster, Ikoma told her to use the mana drain. The girl didn't know how to react to this. Tying up monsters and draining their mana would allow them to generate a lot of mana. Afterwards, she could use the ability on the protagonist to transfer the mana to him. The girl said she understood but asked him to at least cover the monster's face. Ikoma replied that he couldn't do that without using a skill. Stating that there was no other option, Setsuki began using her mana draining ability. The protagonist said that now they could, while the girl lamented the poor monster. It was lying on the ground after being cruelly defeated. The girl said she was going to transfer the mana now, but Ikoma asked why she was blushing like that, telling her not to make it weird. She began transferring the mana to her companion. The protagonist noticed that his mana went from 16 to 25. The girl admitted that it wasn't as efficient as she thought it would be, as it took a long time to gain just 9 points. He said that was exactly why they would drain the mana from 6 more goblins. The girl was startled by this, asking if they were really going to do that, but the boy said it was a great opportunity to level up. After a while, he struck a cut on one of the monsters. The protagonist said that was the 6th and asked how her mana was, to which she replied that it was almost fully recovered. Setsuki's level went from 20 to 22, while Ikoma leveled up only once. Excited, the girls said they could continue leveling up and exploring like this. But Ikoma said that if they took too long to recover their mana, it could cause accidents. Even so, he could fight monsters like that all day, ensuring they would never lose to them. Opening her status window, Setsuki said she had gained many levels in just one day. She stated that this was completely different from all the other portal expeditions she had been on, since the guild always taught them not to face monsters beyond their level. The protagonist seemed thoughtful as he listened to this. Standing up, he said the guild had to recommend that for safety. However, one rarely gets stronger without facing high-level monsters in order to acquire skills and experiences along the way. She kept watching him while he spoke. Suddenly, the girl became determined. After some time, they were walking through what seemed to be a cathedral, and Setsuki asked if they were really going to clear that portal. Suddenly, he stopped and said they were at the right place. In front of a door, Ikoma said that the boss of the Theater of Maniacal Dreams was behind that door. He reached out to open it. With a big smile, he said they had reached it in 2 days and bet that the Eradication Ministry didn't expect that. The girl began trembling, asking if he was really talking about the boss monster. Seeing that huge monster, Ikoma didn't say anything, just observing it. But deep down it seemed that after defeating that boss, he would finally be able to get that item he always wanted in his past life. He said they would end this, telling the girl to stick to the plan. Setsuki declared she would do that when his silhouette appeared behind them. Kaoru had been watching them from the shadows. The large clown began to move its hands while laughing maniacally. The protagonist made a gesture with his hand towards his companion. Both began running in parallel toward the boss. He said he would make the boss chase him, while Setsuki stayed waiting for him at a certain distance. Boss monsters have a large amount of HP, along with high regeneration, so they couldn't defeat it through a direct battle. Therefore, they would have to use some tricks. On the other hand, the boss was summoning a ball of light in its hands. It launched it toward its enemy. Ikoma used gravity reduction, noticing it was about a meter away, making it possible to dodge with some ease. On the other side, the girl started to prepare. She quickly used mana drain. With that, she began draining the boss from behind. However, the monster sensed her presence. As soon as it noticed her, it was able to paralyze Setsuki completely. The protagonist yelled desperately, telling her to run and stay safe. He informed her that the boss would use its teleportation attack. He also explained that the attack couldn't be cancelled once cast and told her to run to the center. Suddenly, one of the clown's eyes began to glow. Setsuki saw the shadow of that large monster right behind her. Extremely close to her body, the boss had its mouth open, forming a large fireball. Quickly, it launched the attack at the girl. However, the protagonist rushed toward it, saying he was still there. The monster continued laughing maniacally. On the other hand, Ikoma managed to cancel out the fire attack. As she saw that, Setsuki assumed that attack was extremely fast. The protagonist said it was better for him to get away for now, jumping back onto the clown's back. The boss's eye glowed once again, and it turned towards its opponent. It used its teleportation ability to appear right in front of the boy. Anxious, Ikoma realized it had used the same ability twice in a row. Meanwhile, the giant clown was about to attack him. Worried, the girl screamed for her companion. Surprisingly, he used gravitational reversal. With that, a huge explosion occurred. The monster kept laughing, not quite understanding what had just happened. To its surprise, the protagonist was hanging upside down. However, the boss's eye glowed for a third time. Akoma said that it wasn't as easy as he imagined, but it was still all going according to plan. The girl recalled when she asked if they weren't really going to attack the boss monster, but the protagonist explained that the boss casts magical spells extremely quickly, and if they approach it slowly, they would be incinerated. However, if they attack from a distance, it will use its teleportation to quickly reach them within attack range. But this monster had a critical flaw. Back to the present, Satsuki used her mana draining ability again. The clown looked toward her. It widened its eyes, seeing an opportunity. Frightened, the girl said she was too close and that Akoma wouldn't be able to protect her. Mentally, the protagonist said it was already time. The boss extended its palm, summoning an attack. The girl simply closed her eyes, not knowing what to do. However, the monster couldn't cast the magic. Smiling, the protagonist said the boss was out of mana. Its fire attack and teleportation move required a lot of mana, and on top of that, the clown couldn't attack without its abilities. The monster simply started running. However, Akoma prepared to jump. He leaped toward the enemy. Using meteor fall, he landed directly on the boss's head. The protagonist warned that it couldn't escape his grasp. After all, it needed abilities just to move. Satsuki used her magic again, launching a ball of darkness at the boss. The monster began screaming in pain. With that, the protagonist increased the gravity and fell on top of it using his abilities. The portal boss had finally been defeated, generating 1043 experience points and also causing Akoma to level up to level 30. His companion was extremely happy that they had defeated the boss, asking what they would do next. Akoma said the gate would close soon, so they needed to leave before that. Satsuki asked what would happen if they got trapped. The protagonist told her not to rush as the gate would remain open for at least half the day, and they hadn't encountered any other monsters. Blushing, the girl said she hadn't known that. Suddenly, the clown's body began to glow. Confused, Satsuki asked what was happening, while the boy said that he had finally succeeded. In front of him was the reward for defeating the boss, the clown's blade. The protagonist said that the blade was perfect for a gravity master, and it could even be considered a hack. Hopa fake a slight smile, seeing that it would be easier than he had imagined. The girl asks if this is the equipment he was looking for. The blade increases attack by 11 points, along with a reduction in skill activation and mana consumption. Satsuki says that sometimes the weapon's stats seem average, but the protagonist repeats that in reality, it is incredible. He explains that the stats and damage are just a bonus. What really matters to him is the effect of the item. Since it can increase the overall power of classes that heavily depend on skills, it makes the item super powerful. The Gravity Master is vulnerable when switching between abilities with a high mana consumption. That's why this weapon can compensate for his weaknesses. The girl is surprised to learn all this. In her past life, the hunter who obtained this sword reached rank thanks to this item. Moreover, he became a criminal for killing other hunters, so the protagonist is practically avoiding an incident by taking the sword. Meanwhile, Satsuki continues to observe the blade. She ponders the fact that he can compensate for his weaknesses. Suddenly, the girl becomes extremely nervous and asks if this means he no longer needs her. Akoma insists that's not true since the item doesn't prevent him from running out of mana, and asks if she minds continuing to work together with him. Still staring at the blade, the girl says is fine with her. Akoma doesn't fully understand while the girl gets angry, saying that now it's a competition. He says that after gaining a few levels, he needs to spend some skill points. Since he's aiming for the top, he will immerse himself in Gravity Master exclusive skills. Still uncertain, he decides what to choose. After some time, he says that it seems good to him, increasing his gravitational magic level to 2. After upgrading his manipulation to level 3, the protagonist notices that he gained another skill, the Super Gravity Bullet. He acknowledges that he relied on manipulation all this time, but now the item will make it easier to use magic. The protagonist gets excited, saying he wants to test all the skills. Suddenly, someone appears, saying they apparently arrived a little late. Kaoru comments that apparently the boy has already defeated the boss. With a wicked look, the man remarks that Akoma must be quite strong. A bit nervous, the protagonist mentally admits this isn't the best time. He also notices that the guy is using stealth to hide and watch the fight. He's probably gathering information on the monster, assuming that both of them would die. Mentally reaffirming that he's seen many people do this in his past life. He asks who the guy is while observing him more closely. At that moment, he realizes that the man is familiar, noticing that this is Kaoru, who took the blade in his past life, becoming the person who turned hunters into prey. Wondering how that's possible, Akoma remembers that it took longer for the man to arrive at the portal in his past life. Shocked, the protagonist complains about what that psychopath is doing here, but then he understands. The guy must have been hiding in the monster's chamber the whole time so he could steal the drop. Kaoru was probably waiting for the victorious hunter to tire before attacking. Satsuki asks him what's wrong. Seeing the sword, the man asks if that's the loot, questioning if the protagonist managed to obtain it after defeating the boss. He then asks if he could take a look. The protagonist says of course, extending his hand. Mentally, the man calls him a fool. Looking at both of them, he says they're both naive and that he'll kill the first man. Then, he'll have some fun with the girl until he gets tired of her. As he approaches them, the psychopath says that they should be more careful. With that, he extends his hand while his eyes glow red. Drawing his dagger, he uses the life eraser skill. However, the protagonist quickly dodges. Kaoru turns around, excited. However, Akoma was already swinging the sword. Even with his speed, the assassin manages to dodge the attack. At that moment, the protagonist realizes that he lost him. He claims he wanted to hit him before he noticed the situation, but unfortunately, the guy is too fast. While his companion looks shocked, he is forced to admit that Kaoru is much stronger than they are. The assassin admits that it's strange, asking the boy how he figured out what was going to happen. After all, he thought he was a fool, but apparently, the brat isn't as bad as he imagined. Satsuki asks the protagonist what's going on, but he tells her that this guy is an assassin who kills hunters. He also says that since he's an assassin, it makes him fast and stealthy. Kaoru asks how he discovered all this in such a short time. Changing his expression, he says that at least this saves him the trouble of explaining things. Telling them to hand over the item, he guarantees he'll spare both of them. The protagonist also changes the way he speaks and says that the worst part of dungeon crimes is that they leave no evidence. That's why he doesn't believe the man intends to let them live. Kaoru stays silent for a moment, but he soon smiles, stating that this is good. After all, the boy is smart and also very brave, even though he's weak. Getting ready, he declares that he wants to see the protagonist coughing up blood as he walks to hell. On the other hand, Akoma shows no hesitation or anything of the sort. A little nervous, the protagonist admits that this is not good, since that is the serial killer who wiped out several hunters, the person who obtained the clown's blade in his past life. He confesses that he didn't consider the possibility that this guy could have been hiding in the portal all along. But when their swords clashed, he realized there was no way to defeat that lunatic. The girl calls him by his companion's name. Surprisingly, the protagonist shouts, telling her to stay behind him. Akoma explains that assassins are fast and deal extra critical damage when they ambush someone. That's why the guy will kill her when he gets close enough, since witches are a support class, not a close combat class. For that reason, she shouldn't get any closer, asking the girl to leave everything to him. Mentally, the protagonist acknowledges that it won't be easy fighting that lunatic alone, but he also can't let Satsuki face him. In addition to having the combat advantage, Kaoru has vast experience and abilities in battle. Moreover, the most important thing, the girl would panic if she saw the evil things he does. With that, he reuses his gravity reduction. Quickly, they clash their weapons. Even holding a unique item, the protagonist trembles. Kaoru says that he's very good with a sword. However, he warns that he has bad news. After all, the boy probably doesn't have experience in killing people. Unbalancing Ikoma, the lunatic says that, on the other hand, he has killed dozens of people and would never lose in battle. Mentally, Kaoru confesses that most people panic, but the protagonist prepares to attack again. Dodging the blow, he says that people can't handle the pressure of fighting others, so they tend to make mistakes. But he feels a little apprehensive as another cut comes extremely close to his body. That's when he realizes that this kid is not shocked at all. In fact, he seems to easily respond to his movements. Kaoru claims that this is ridiculous after all. There's no way a low-level kid is putting pressure on him. Meanwhile, a little nervous, Satsuki watches the situation unfold, realizing that her companion is not just intelligent in terms of knowledge. He's also incredibly strong in close combat. In his thoughts, Akoma admits that he is really happy to have gotten the blade in time, reducing the activation delay of his skills so he can quickly alternate between reducing and increasing gravity. He wouldn't be able to withstand his enemy's attacks, and he'd also be out of mana if the sword wasn't reducing consumption. Suddenly, Kaoru yells, saying that the fun ends there. He fills his cheeks with air as he prepares to show what he's capable of. With that, the guy spits something dark red. It was a poison needle. Luckily, the boy notices it coming toward him. Skillfully, he deflects it with his blade. The assassin is extremely shocked, declaring that this is impossible. Still disoriented, he sees that the protagonist is heading his way. He dodges, but Ikoma anticipated and blocked the needle. The guy ends up receiving a cut on his cheek. Irritated, he yells, saying that the brat is very lucky. Attacking back, Kaoru says that this won't happen again. On the other hand, Ikoma remains seemingly calm. He uses his life eraser skill to try to land the final blow. However, the protagonist activates his skill and increases the gravity, managing to take the blade from the enemy's hand. The assassin feels pain as he stands still. The protagonist says that the guy has a skill that allows him to accelerate his arm toward the target's neck. This makes the lunatic even more shocked, confused about how his opponent was able to figure all of this out. Ikoma states that it's this simplicity that makes the man's movements extremely easy to predict. Moreover, he says that if it were him, he wouldn't use this kind of ability against certain enemies. Suddenly, Satsuki starts preparing a skill. She uses her shadow sphere. Kaoru watches the attack coming from behind. He loses his balance a little. When he looks ahead, he sees that the boy is raising his sword. The protagonist quickly swings his blade, making a cut on his face. The assassin begins to scream, mumbling about his eye. Trying to stop the bleeding, he wonders how the brat dares to cut his eye. While watching him, the protagonist realizes that in addition to being able to respond to his movements, he can also deal with his tricks. He also matched his speed using gravity manipulation. His only current problem is mana. Since he doesn't have much left after fighting the boss, he will soon run out, and when that happens, they'll be completely finished. As he runs toward his enemy, Kaoru promises he will finish the boy off. Grabbing his knife again, the assassin tries to prepare himself while feeling scared, complaining about why it's so hard to deal with that kid. After all, he knows everything from his movements to his tricks. Not to mention, he's so powerful. While seeing Ikoma moving from side to side, he says that this isn't right, noticing that Ikoma is heading toward his blind spot. Trying to dodge the protagonist's strike, he uses shadow steps. Getting more and more exhausted, Ikoma starts to get worried. With that, he launches another cut. Kaoru claims that the boy has the advantage and wonders why there's still so much desperation. But then he begins to laugh, stating that he's glad he let him finish off the boss. He says out loud that the boy is quite strong, adding that he would have become a hero if he managed to leave there alive, stamping his foot on the ground and laughing like a madman. The guy says that, unfortunately, that will never happen, promising that the brat will die right there. Both he and his companion watch this with some apprehension. They continue exchanging blows frantically, but now the protagonist is a little more exhausted. Trying to help, Satsuki summons another shadow sphere. The attack heads toward the assassin, but he uses his shadow steps to dodge. The girl is extremely frightened to see that he managed to dodge all of them. Besides fear, she is caught up in her own thoughts, admitting that she's not being helpful at all. Watching her companion fight frantically against a stronger enemy, she realizes that even with Ikoma having the advantage, the boy has started to be pressured by the opponent. The lunatic continues shouting, claiming that he loves this. Still exchanging blows, he says it's not every day you find an enemy you don't know if you'll kill or die against. He asks them to enjoy the battle as much as possible while it lasts. Ikoma tries to land another cut, but the psychopath manages to dodge. The protagonist is getting more and more nervous and anxious. Taking advantage of the weight of his sword, the boy uses his leg to try to land a blow. He manages to hit an attack on the opponent's chin. The guy gets even angrier, but quickly tries to distance himself. Kaoru says that apparently he has many tricks up his sleeve. Mentally, Ikoma confirms that he can make his body lighter with the gravity reduction skill, perform acrobatic movements and attack. Thanks to this skill, he can dodge practically anything. However, his enemy has realized that he is running out of mana. The guy continues laughing maniacally while watching the boy. In his mind, he says that now Ikoma is using an active skill to increase his physical abilities, but you won't be able to keep it up for much longer. And that will be the moment he finishes off the brat. The assassin says that apparently the protagonist won't last much longer. With that, he resumes attacking in every possible way. In the middle of this sequence, Ikoma realizes his mana is gone, and this will be his final attack. As the boy jumps, Kaoru is surprised, not knowing how he's doing that. Looking up, he wonders if this is part of the boy's abilities. But the assassin begins to say that it won't matter, as you won't be able to move in the air. But the protagonist claims that he has one chance to use the skill to increase gravity, so he must put everything into this chance. Gripping his sword tightly, he says he will put all his remaining mana into this attack. With that, he uses Meteor Fall, pushing his opponent to the ground. Straining with all his might, Kaoru asks what kind of incredible power that is. Realizing that no matter how much force he applies, he can't throw him back. Unable to hold back his opponent's blade any longer, the guy receives a large cut on his chest. The protagonist is extremely tired while being notified that his mana has hit 0. His companion approaches him, calling out to him. Happily, she says that Ikoma has won. However, he simply apologizes. Fainting, the boy continues apologizing to Satsuki. Right behind him, severely injured Kaoru gets up. While cursing him, the assassin says the brat must be out of mana by now. Kneeling on the ground, unable to move, Ikoma tells his companion to run. Using the little strength he has left, he says the guy won't be able to reach her. But for that, the girl needs to start running now. Even his opponent admits that he's an incredible guy since he must be exhausted after facing the boss. And yet, he continued fighting him to keep Kaoru from getting close to the girl. This leaves Satsuki even more shocked. Meanwhile, the lunatic says he can't believe Ikoma was facing him to protect such a pathetic person, admitting that he's starting to admire him. The protagonist is getting increasingly irritated by this, and the guy still says that he's impressed that Ikoma hasn't told him his full name. On the other hand, Satsuki is caught in those words, wondering if she was really dragging Ikoma down. With tears in her eyes, she admits that Aoe was right and that she should have given up on being a hunter. After all, her companion would never have lost to a guy like that. Remembering when he saved her, the girl mentally calls for his help again. Suddenly, something changes in her. The girl has a different expression, and the air around her seems to change. The protagonist states that he would never tell his full name to worms like Kaoru. The guy says that's a shame, claiming he really likes him, declaring that he is the first person he truly admires. That's why he will remember his face. Raising his dagger, he prepares himself. Surprisingly, the girl summons another shadow sphere. Even the assassin feels that this one is different. He starts to dodge, saying she won't hit him with that. But suddenly, he feels pain. Satsuki has struck him with her staff. The guy curses the girl mentally since he's already badly injured. Moreover, she attacked from his blind spot. The girl runs toward her companion, while Ikoma asks what she's doing, reminding her that he told her to run. Using some ability, Satsuki says she will never run again, since he convinced her that she has the power to make things work. With that, she uses mana transfer. Thus, she manages to restore some of his strength. Seeing all that energy, the assassin doesn't fully understand what's happening, but he screams, warning that he will kill her first. Quickly, the guy activates Life Eraser. Ikoma looks directly at him, but she shows no fear, only a certain indifference. The protagonist thanks her for saving both of them. He is now on his feet and has stopped his enemy's attack. Ikoma starts to recover some of his mana. Shocked, Kaoru wonders if his opponent has already recovered enough mana to use that ability again. The guy says that this is beyond the limits, but the protagonist says that from the beginning, they were a team. This was Yoon before he ambushed them. Moreover, he recovered his mana while Kaoru continues severely injured, declaring that now he wants to know who will win that fight. Quickly, he attacks his opponent again. The lunatic gets scared while trying to dodge. However, the protagonist doesn't give any openings and increases his strength and speed. The guy claims it's not over yet and begins to use dark magic, summoning a red circle in front of him. Satsuki prepares to face it. However, Ikoma tells her to stay still, and surprisingly, he summons his gravitational magic, telling his enemy that his magic is too slow to use against opponents, and that in his past life he used the clown's blade to compensate for the delay in casting such an attack. Seeing that Kaoru says this is his end, a large black sphere, extremely similar to a black hole, heads toward him. Hey everyone, did you enjoy this story? I really liked it. If you want to follow the next part, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. See you in the next story, guys.